Oh, Elden Ring, why do you have such good bones? I'm talking about the Skeleton Warriors, the Grim Reapers, the Bony Boatmen, the Skull Snails, the huge friggin' No. I mean the huge skulls. From Software has always had excellent skellies, but Elden Ring's Bone Boys are their best yet. And one clue as to why is Hidetaka Miyazaki's well-documented love of Dungeons and Dragons. In the original D&D Monster Manual, you can find lots of outrageous creatures. The vicious owlbear, the fearsome mind flayer, frog, and way down on page 87, skeletons. According to D&D's co-creator Gary Gygax, skeletons are summoned by powerful magics and are found in crypts and dungeons and similar forsaken places. They're resistant to most spells, but weak to holy water. Blades and pointy weapons are less effective than blunt instruments like clubs and maces. In just 3 short paragraphs, Dungeons & Dragons established the anatomy that almost every fantasy game would follow. But Gygax's template is now 43 years old. In the years since, skeleton innovators like those at FromSoft have been hard at work perfecting this legendary video game MOOC. Skeletons are inherently empty of guts, but full of meaning. For example, these Grim Reaper-looking guys. This iconic skeleton look has been around since about the 14th century when the bubonic plague ripped through Europe. People experienced death so much that they personified the concept in sorta human form, complete with a scythe meant to represent how the plague reaped a bounty of human lives. And the lands between is a vaguely medieval setting that's both chock full of death and experiencing a terrifying plague. So these reapers are a meaningful, horrifying touch. Also distinct among Elden Ring skeletons are these massive, ghostly monsters who shamble along the ground, seemingly too heavy to hoist themselves onto their feet. They look an awful lot like the giant spectral skeleton in this famous 1844 ukiyo-e woodprint. This huge skeleton has been referenced in a lot of Japanese or Japanese-inspired media since then. Sometimes it's referred to as the yokai gashidokuro, a ghostly skeleton 15 times the size of a human that's said to form from the unburied remains of soldiers and starving peasants. Fittingly, when you encounter this flavor of giant skeleton in Elden Ring, you find them around ancient battlefields. This is just one of the ways Elden Ring uses skeletons to tell a story, something video games love to do. Consider these skeletons. This person was using the toilet when they died. And this person was using a porta potty when they died. And these guys were sharing a urinal when they died. There is some truly S-tier environmental skellytelling in Fallout 4, but the skeletons themselves aren't really a mystery. The nuclear apocalypse setting is kind of the franchise's whole deal. On the other hand, Elden Ring's Lands Between is absolutely baffling. It's so shrouded in mystery that you become desperate for clues that might explain how anything works. That's why it's so nice that skeletons mark crypts and dungeons for the terrifying locations that they are. You don't need to know the specifics of the story to know that this is a place people die, but never leave. And when the game does Fallout-style skeleton storytelling, it goes big. I'm talking 5-story tall skeleton kings sitting on massive thrones. I'm talking building-sized skulls embedded in mountainsides. You're not just wondering how these things died, you're also wondering, what the hell was that? And can I fight it? And when something looks this serious and grim and tragic, it's even funnier when you knock its head right off. Nearly 2 decades before Dungeons & Dragons, audiences were wowed by the skeletons featured in Jason and the Argonauts. These still impressive special effects were brought to life by cinema legend Ray Harryhausen, who painstakingly hand-animated the skeletal figures. In the film, the Greek heroes watch in awe as the skeletons crawl out of the earth. Once assembled, they haltingly march toward the warriors, before suddenly springing into action like wild animals. Presenting the skeletons as slow and stilted, and then completely switching that up, subverts your expectations. It also taught us a very important life lesson. Just because skeletons don't have guts, doesn't mean they won't stab you right in yours. Since Jason and the Argonauts was released, we've had a solid 59 years to learn how skeletons should behave. And Elden Ring takes those foolish expectations and throws them right into a bottomless pit. Take these skeletons. You might think, what do I have to worry about? All they've got is a sword and they're way over. What the heck? This is what Harryhausen understood. Frail skeletons pulling off ridiculous parkour shit is a great way to play with audience expectations and keep them from getting complacent. But the surprise element isn't just about how we think skeletons should move, it's about how we defeat them. Obviously skeletons are dead, so how do you kill them again? Harryhausen also toiled over this existential conundrum when making Jat-Ta. In the end, the skeletons are ultimately defeated by their inability to swim. Simple, elegant, and surprising. For a Soulsian first-timer, I was shocked to encounter enemies that seemingly won't die, despite already being dead. If I had paid more attention, I would have noticed the pile of rattling bones start to glow as the skeleton knit itself back together. Eventually, I learned that I simply smashed the bone pile to finish off the skeleton. Thank you, Polygon.com guides team. Then, after you've gotten comfortable smashing bone piles, Elden Ring subverts its own rule by introducing skeletons whose bones can't be smashed. Surprise! To keep these bones from resurrecting, you gotta kill the necromancer nearby. It's always okay to bully necromancers. Now, compare this to the Draugr in Skyrim. Whether you're in a dungeon at the start of your adventure or 50 hours in, these skeletons fight pretty much the same way, which is not super exciting. Dealing with them late game isn't really a challenge so much as it is an annoyance. Elden Ring skeletons, well, they're also annoying, but they change things up in a way that's engaging and memorable. It's hard to forget that time you lost all your runes because a skeleton rolled down the hallway like a bowling ball. And while silly shit like that happens a lot in Elden Ring, skeletons being goofy wasn't always de rigueur. When medieval artists depicted people dancing with skeletons, it was actually a grim reminder that death comes for us all. But as our understanding of medical science improved in the 19th century, this imagery started to seem silly. Skeletons became fodder for punchlines and cartoons and fantastical New York Times headlines. The natural evolution of that is everyone losing their minds over the 12-foot-tall Home Depot skeleton.
A Florida man steals a 12-foot skeleton right out of someone's front yard.
Just look at the roles given to talking skeletons in games. Sure, there are baddies and badasses, but the majority are wisecracking, sarcastic comedians.
I'm a talking skeleton! Ooh, scary! You're so scared!
In Divinity Original Sin 2, you can play as, or group up with, a talking skeleton. Thane even has a tragic backstory and romance options. Yes, you can bone down. But his characterization still trends towards ironically detached sarcasm.
Oh, don't stare. How would you look after eons in some ghastly crypt?
Elden Ring skeletons are funny too, but it's not because they're cracking wise. If a fleshy person were getting crushed by this trap, it might be funny, but also kind of gruesome. But when it's a bunch of bones, their bodies comically shatter into 206 individual pieces. Hilarious. And Elden Ring is chock full of dungeons that are specifically built for bad things to happen to good skeletons. Elden Ring's skeletons are threatening enough to keep you on your toes, but just when they're getting too frustrating, they pull off some real Three Stooges shit. It's the way Elden Ring balances how funny and goofy they are with how serious and meaningful they are that makes them so special. Laughing in the face of death has never felt better.